Hello, hello, hello. This is Warren Redlick. Thank you for watching Sunday Live. Going to talk about Tesla, going to talk about Arcimoto, going to talk about Lucid Motors, some boring company news. We'll slip some other stuff in there. Let's have some fun. Are you ready? Let's go. And of course, thank you to the Vasa Law Firm in Sweden, all my Patreon supporters for helping the channel grow. I also want to mention that today's live stream, the chat is for subscribers only, and I turned off slow mode. Normally, the way the live stream works is that anyone who's watching the video can comment in the chat, and I put slow mode on because we get so many people watching and so many people commenting in the chat that the chat becomes unmanageable. So I'm going to pay attention to the chat. If the chat becomes unmanageable, I will turn slow mode on again. I just want to see how it works if we limit it to subscribers. And if you'd like to participate in the chat on the live stream, please subscribe to the channel, and that will increase my subscriber base, which I would appreciate. So you have to, I think you have to subscribe for at least 5 minutes before you can comment in the chat. I believe the rule that YouTube sets, I can set the length of time, but you can't just subscribe, comment, and leave immediately. You would have to be a subscriber for 5 minutes or more. I could make that longer, but if you'd like to comment in the chat, please subscribe to the channel. Obviously, if you're here watching my live streams, then you like what I do, you should subscribe, and then you'll see more of my videos. So let's get into it. First highlight of the week was Elon replied to one of my tweets. This is, I believe, the 5th time that he's replied to my tweets. I'm going to talk about this particular tweet later. He's replied to 5 tweets. I think he liked 1 tweet. This was about Lucid Motors, so we're going to talk about that in the Lucid section, which is going to be over here. If you want to skip, if you're watching this video later, you can follow the green box, and you'll see where we are in the video through that. I may put chapters and I may not, but this should help you. Okay, so the other thing that I just wanted to mention briefly, because I'm going to talk about Tesla first, is, for those who don't know, I bought a 2018 Tesla Model 3. I bought it from Omar Kazi. Omar is a friend of Elon. He's part of the Third Row Tesla podcast. We drove across the country, raised money for St. Jude, all that. I've been driving it now for a while. I don't know if it's a month yet, but I've been driving it for a while. And I like it. And then yesterday, I moved my Passat out of the garage and then drove it back into the garage later. And it was so clunky. I'm now used to how a Tesla drives. And driving a gasoline-powered vehicle just feels awkward. So I don't have a lot more to say than that, but I think that's an important detail. So, okay. So that I just wanted you to say, you know, if you haven't driven a Tesla yet, I will say this, having driven a Tesla a couple of times and then going back to my car wasn't a big deal. I didn't get used to driving a Tesla yet. If I just drove, even 7 hours in a Model Y wasn't enough to make me recognize how much better it was. But now it's weeks driving a Tesla only, and then I go back to the Passat and wow. Okay, now I realize, oh my God, this is terrible. it's just clunky, it's mechanic, something, it just doesn't feel right. You put it in gear and it lurches forward, and you want to stop and it doesn't stop smoothly. Really, I mean, I actually think that the Volkswagen Passat is a very good gasoline-powered car. It's got great gas mileage. It's got a lot of space inside. But wow, that was disappointing when I got it and drove it again. Okay, big Tesla news. Tesla, this is today? Yes, today Tesla announced their first deliveries of the new Model X. This is a big deal. It's a small deal overall for the company in the long term because Model S and Model X are small parts of the company now. But for Q4, delivering Model X, which I believe starts at $100,000 for new orders, and the Plaids are 120 minimum. This is going to be a significant volume because this is the first month of Q4, so we should expect to see a significant number of deliveries of Model X in Q4. We're probably going to see an increased volume of deliveries of Model S in Q4. So that means that side of Tesla will increase, and that's going to increase revenue, and it's going to increase profit because these are relatively profitable vehicles. So this is good news. I don't think it's not going to play any role in the Q3 numbers we're going to talk about in a minute. It should play a role in the Q4 numbers, and of course going out to 2022, which is, when I say Q3 up here, the next topic, 2022 is what's really important to get out of Q3. So we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. There was some news from NBC Washington. This is typical media FUD. 2 people were seriously injured when a Tesla careened off River Road near Potomac. Why mention that it was a Tesla? Do they do that when it's a Ford? Do they say when a Ford careened off the road? No, they pick on Tesla. And what's comical, look at the damage to this car. Let me make this larger. Look at the damage. You guys know Teslas are hardy. Look at the extent of the damage. And it says 2 people were seriously injured. I read the article. 1 person was seriously injured. 1 person walked away. Look at that wreck. Look at that car saved 2 people's lives. If that had been a Ford, if that had been a Volkswagen, if that had been a Toyota hitting that tree with that velocity, both people would have been dead. This Tesla saved lives, and they missed the story here. This was a total miss, a typical and total miss by the media about how safe Teslas are. And related to that, if you check the Tesla YouTube channel, they just uploaded a video this week about their crash lab and the things that they're doing to make their cars safer. And Elon talked about this, I think, on Joe Rogan. They analyze crashes in a variety of different ways so that they can program the airbags to open in the right way to make the occupants of the vehicle safer. And this video goes through how they do that. For the NHTSA, when they have their crash testing, when the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety has their crash testing, they test very specific crashes. But Tesla has real world experience now with their cameras, with their cars, with the data that generate about all the different kinds of crashes cars are experiencing. And they've identified some of the most common crashes that aren't tested by IIHS or NHTSA. And they're checking to see how can we handle those crashes better. And they use computer modeling, and then they put that in the real, they take them down and they put them in the crash lab and actually crash them. But they do a lot of things to make sure that their airbags are really, really safe, and they make the occupants safer. And you see it. There was an accident, I want to say it was 2 years ago, where a Model 3 was making a left turn with and then was a BMW going like 100 miles an hour on a 45 mile an hour speed limit, and drove right into the passenger door. And the passenger in the Tesla was killed. I think 2 or 3 occupants of the BMW were killed. Passenger in the Tesla was killed. Driver of the Tesla walked away from a crash where they got hit by a BMW at 100 miles an hour. Like a 5,000 pound BMW, not like a 1 Series. Like it was a 5 Series. Amazing safety that Teslas offer. Now you get hit on the passenger side at 100 miles an hour by a 5,000 pound car. Only so much you can do, but the driver survived. Walked away. So tremendous response. It's really annoying that the media does this, that they do this. How often do you see an article where it says Ford careened off road, people injured? They don't name the other brands in the headlines of their stories. They only name Tesla. Tesla didn't cause the accident. The driver drove badly. Something like that happened. That happens with any car. But Tesla's crash technology saves lives. That's really, really important. So another quick thing about Tesla, there's this character Squawk Square on Twitter who just floats rumors left, right, and center. And this is a rumor I've heard a lot, that Tesla might enter the smartphone market. This is a misunderstanding of the way Elon thinks about what markets to enter. Elon looks for markets where the established players have become, for lack of a better term, ossified. They don't innovate in a significant way, the way that they should. There's competition maybe, but it's not the right not the right kind of competition. And there's a real opportunity to do something really different that will improve something 10x from the way it's been done before. SpaceX is the best example of this. The industry was ossified. They weren't really competing to lower prices. They weren't really competing to improve quality. They had actually regressed from where the industry had been in the 60s and 70s and 80s. 60s and 70s, I should say. The industry had actually regressed. And Elon saw an opportunity to do 10x better than what everybody was doing. I think Tesla is now 10x better than what car companies have been doing, what gasoline cars are like. So the smartphones have been, hotly competitive, very innovative. There's not really an opportunity to innovate in smartphones in the same way to make that much of a difference compared to what smartphones already do. Elon uses an iPhone and he's happy with it. Could they do better with autocorrect? Sure. Are there Android phones that are better in some ways? Sure. But is Tesla likely to do better than that? I don't see it. I don't see the value in Tesla going into that market. You know, how many phones are they going to sell? Who, you know, there's a lot of challenges with that. So they do it. They do an electric vertical takeoff and landing jet before they do a phone. That's just my opinion. I don't think this rumor makes sense. So, and there's a lot of rumors from Squawk Square that don't make sense. For some reason, he gets a lot of attention for it anyway. And the idea that the phone would have satellite communication with Starlink is, I keep hearing this, that somebody should make a phone that communicates with Starlink. Starlink requires an antenna that's this big. You want to carry around a phone that's this big, okay, and it's a physics problem. The frequencies that the Starlink satellites are communicating at, the size of the antenna you need is this big. A phone just doesn't have the size to be able to work with those signals. It's just not going to work. So I appreciate the desire for these things. And solar charging, you can't, the size, solar on a small scale just doesn't generate enough electricity to matter. You need a larger size to generate the electricity that you need. Doesn't make sense on a car either, despite what Aptera says. It doesn't make sense on a car. You just can't generate enough electricity. You need more surface area. A phone offers a ridiculously small amount of surface area. You're not going to generate enough electricity. There's a huge role for solar in places where you can put large amounts of solar panels out, but not on a phone, not on a car. So, just another little detail. I went to the Electrified Expo yesterday in Miami with the Tesla Club of South Florida. They had an event. Kat Paterno, who's a friend of mine, who's active on Clubhouse and Twitter, also came down. Justin Horn from Tesla Club of South Florida was there. Great people. You can see some of these pictures. There's a group of us hanging out. This is a pre-event. That's one of the things I love about Tesla is there's these clubs everywhere, and a group of people get together. We got together like a half hour before, maybe it was an hour before the event started, hanging out, a whole bunch of Teslas all in one place. And it was really cool. We parked at like one location that was maybe a quarter mile away from the main location for the event. And the guy from Tesla Club South Florida went over to the police and said, hey, can you guys shut down the road so we can all come in together? They actually shut down traffic on the Rickenbacker Causeway so that like 30 or 40 Teslas, or maybe it was even 50 Teslas, could all go in together. It was crazy. And there's video of that on Twitter, I think. And then this is us in the parking lot. There had to be like 50. When by the time I came out of the event, there were like 50 Teslas on both sides of this. There's Teslas here, and then there's Teslas on the other side over there. And there had to be at least 50, maybe it was 100 Teslas all lined up, and they put all the Teslas parked in one space. And it was kind of funny. There's a message here about this Electrified Expo. There were other vehicle manufacturers there. Arcimoto was there. We're going to talk about Arcimoto a little later. Volvo was there, Volkswagen was there, BMW was there, Hyundai was there. Hyundai did not have an Ioniq. The Hyundai latest EV is the Ioniq or Ioniq 5. That was not available to test drive. BMW only had hybrids. I think BMW only had hybrids available to test drive. We drove Arcimoto. I didn't bother trying the other. We were thinking about trying the BMWs out. We didn't get there. It was really hot out. It was an outdoor event, which is tough. And it was like 91 degrees. And at a certain point, we just said, all right, I don't care that much to drive these other vehicles. We looked at them. Polestar looked pretty cool. But overall, you know, were they that impressive? I'm not so sure. And I didn't really give them a chance, to be fair. But it was striking how much representation Tesla had at the event, even though Tesla itself wasn't at the event. There was a Tesla Club South Florida booth. There was a Tesla Club, Tesla Owners of Florida booth. There were companies that do like ceramic coatings or wraps for Tesla. There were at least 3 or 4 commercial businesses that were there promoting the services they provide to Tesla vehicles. And the practical reality is you go in the parking lot and there were 50 or 100 Teslas there, and I didn't see in the parking lot any other EVs. It was all gasoline vehicles and Teslas. There were no Ford Mustang Mach-E's. There were no Volkswagen ID4s in the parking lot. They're not out there yet. This idea that the competition is coming, where are they? They're showing up to a couple events and giving people a few test drives. Where are they? They're not coming. All right, let's move on. What? Just looking at the... I'm just looking at the chat for a second. Okay, so we're going to move on to talk about Q3. So I did a poll on Twitter, and I want to talk about why this is important in a second. But I did a poll on Twitter to just see what people think the Q3 earnings per share estimates will be, Wall Street's at $1.50 a share. I was incorrect in saying that I cannot enough. James Stevenson is at $1.76. He corrected me. He's at $1.55. I'm at $1.96. I've seen other people closer to $2. So I did a poll whether people think the earnings per share will be less than $1.50, $1.50 to $1.75, between $1.76 and $2, or more than $2. A strong majority thinks it's going to be more than $1.75, more than $1.75 a share. So let's talk about this for a second. And then just really quick, sorry. So James Stevenson, if you follow him, I cannot enough on Twitter. He has this in-depth forecast of what he sees coming, not only for Q3, but beyond. Excuse me. And you can see Wall Street estimates down here for Q3 are $1.50 a share. I think what's more important is here. The 2022 estimates and what's going to happen in 2022 is what's really important. But let's just talk about this for a second. So Tesla announced their deliveries for Q3, and it was larger than people expected. They delivered more vehicles than was expected. So that's going to increase the earnings expected as well. Let's go, Brandon. So somebody asked about what I think about Arcimoto. Arcimoto's 2 topics ahead. We're getting to Arcimoto. It's coming. Arcimoto and Lucid are coming later. We're talking about Tesla first. This is mostly a Tesla channel. Tesla and SpaceX channel. So when you start thinking about what is the stock worth, what is Tesla as a stock worth, what is Tesla as a company worth, one of the things you look at is, okay, how much is their earnings? And then this is one of sort of those fundamental ways that Wall Streeters look at is what are the earnings, and then what's an appropriate price earnings ratio to assign to that company, which is usually based on how fast the company is growing. So if Tesla earns $1.50 a share, then you could translate that and say, well, then if that's 1 quarter, then 4 quarters would be on a pace for $6 a share. And if the company's trading at $600 for a share, that would be 100 price earnings ratio. If it's trading at $900, it'd be $1.50, 150 price earnings ratio. Then you got to come down to the question, well, what's an appropriate price earnings ratio? And that's a big question. Amazon's around 70, Apple's around 30, 35. I don't remember the exact numbers today, but that's ballpark where they are. I've seen Amazon as high as 90. So I don't think the Q3 numbers are as big as what's going to happen in 2022. But if you look at, say, if Q3 is $2 a share, then your pace is already $8 a share. The 2021 numbers will be less than $8 a share, probably because you've got 2 previous quarters that were less than $2. Q4 is probably going to be higher, but your estimate for for 2021 might be, if you see Q3 being $2 a share, you're starting to think we might reach $7 or even $8 a share for 2021. But the really big question, so I'm not a short-term investor. I'm not as concerned about what the quarterly numbers are for Q3, right? I'm more concerned about the future of Tesla. But what Q3 leads us toward is what will the numbers be in 2022, which is still not long-term enough for me. I'm out in 2026 and 2030. But if I'm right, and Q3 is around $2 a share, and it's growing fast, the earnings per share for Q3 is growing fast, then Q4, James Stevenson thinks Q4 is going to be off the charts because there's going to be a special accounting adjustment, and it may be well over $3 a share, even $4 a share in Q4. But what we're really looking at is what's going to happen in 2022. So let me put this up, and you can see that the average analyst estimate for 2022 is $7.26 a share. Now, this is absolute nonsense if Tesla delivers $2 a share in Q3 of 2021, because it's going up. So if it's $2 a share in Q3 and then it's $2.50 a share in Q4, let's say it's $2.50 a share on average for 2022. You're already at $10 a share, which is the high estimate. That's the high estimate over here, right? It's $10 a share. But if we hit $2 a share in Q3, we're probably going to hit $2.50 in Q4. Natural earnings, leaving out this special accounting thing that James Stevenson's talking about. And then you're starting Q1 of 2022, probably $3 a share. And you might hit $4 a share or higher by the end of the year. And you could be talking about earnings per share for 2022, $14 a share. Now, if you say 100 price earnings ratio, you're talking about a $1,400 stock price, right? And I think a $100 price earnings ratio is a low. I think the price earnings ratio should be higher than 100. So, where does it go? how high does, and as we see Giga Texas and Giga Berlin coming online and producing vehicles, they start scaling production. There's two big things about that. One, you start seeing an increased volume of revenue, right? But you also have multiple cost savings there. You have cost savings that Giga Texas and Giga Berlin are more efficient than Fremont and Shanghai. Shanghai is very efficient because their labor costs are low and they're very productive, but the manufacturing methods at Berlin and Texas are going to be more advanced than Shanghai. So ultimately, you're going to see lower cost of production in Berlin and Texas than even what you see in Shanghai. And then where that goes is you start to see the shipping costs. Right now, they're shipping vehicles from Shanghai to Europe, and maybe Fremont is shipping vehicles somewhere. Once you keep the vast majority of the vehicles you produce in the same market where you produce them, you've dramatically reduced shipping costs, you've reduced tariff costs, you've reduced and you've increased the speed that you get. You've reduced the time it takes to get the vehicle from production to customer, so you've accelerated when you receive the money. So there's so many good things where this is going to take off. And I think the really big question isn't what are the earnings for Q3. The really big question is what are the earnings for 2022. And I see earnings for 2022 where you see the high estimate here is $10 a share. I think that should be the low estimate. I mean, I don't see how earnings per share don't break $12 a share and could hit $15 a share. And at $15 a share for 2022, you're talking about a $1,500 share price, and it's trading at $800 right now. 840, something like that, 830. Huge potential here. Huge potential here. Let's please stop the political talk. If I see any more political talk, you're gonna get prevented from commenting. Listen, only subscribers are in the chat, so I don't want to ban a subscriber from commenting in the chat, but this is not here to talk politics. And Mark and the moderators, let me know. Watch your language. Don't swear. Keep things appropriate. Mark and the other moderators, if you think I need to go to slow mode, tell me, but I think we're going okay in terms of speed. So for those who are just started watching now, this week the chat is for subscribers only, and we have moderators who are moderating to make sure that we avoid inappropriate chat comments. I do not have it on slow mode, so you can comment faster. I may put it into slow mode if the moderators tell me that it's too much. Okay, so that's Q3. And we'll talk about this probably in the Q&A. So let's move on to FSD Beta. Very excited about FSD Beta. Right here, this journalist, there's this comment that I keep seeing about FSD Beta, that Tesla just put 1,000 full self-driving cars on the road, even though the company knows the cars cannot drive themselves, and pedestrians, cyclists, motorcyclists, or car drivers beware. And I pointed out that Tesla has had FSD Beta running on 1,000 cars already for a year, and there hasn't been one crash. And they just added 1,000 more. It wasn't, and it's not that they added 1,000 full self-driving cars. Here's what happens, okay? And I'm going to say that I have substantial personal knowledge now of how full self-driving beta works. Having ridden with Omar Kazi, having ridden with Omar from Tesla Tina, having ridden with Omar Kazi, having ridden with Raphael from Tesla Tina, and having other unspecified experience with FSD Beta that I'm not going to get into in detail. Hint, I bought Omar's car. It came with FSD. You can do the math there. So what happens when you're driving FSD Beta is you're riding in the car and the car is driving itself, and you have your hands on the wheel and you have your foot near the pedals. And if the car does something stupid, you can grab the wheel. Your hands may already be on the wheel, or you can hit the brake or hit the gas, the accelerator. It's right there. You have complete control of the car whenever you want, instantly. Now, I have taught two teenagers to drive. You sit in the passenger seat while you're beta testing your beta child. Your full self-driving human beta is driving the car. You're sitting in the passenger seat. You cannot touch the pedals. You can grab the wheel, but it's very limited, your ability to control the wheel. So with FSD Beta, you have much more ability to intervene than with FSD Human Beta. So no one complains about the fact that we have millions of teenagers driving in beta mode with humans supervising from the passenger seat with much less control than humans have in the driver's seat of FSD Beta. It's dumb. You are warned this thing may do stupid things, and I would say this. First of all, it is amazing how good FSD Beta is. It's hard to wrap your head around how good FSD Beta is. It is spectacular. But it makes mistakes. It does stupid stuff sometimes. Now, in a 20-mile, depending on what kind of drive you're doing, if you go on the interstate highway, it's just pretty good. FSD on the highway, FSD Beta isn't really driving the interstate highways, but what the FSD that's on the interstate highways is just pretty good, doesn't make a lot of mistakes. We drove across the country. Pretty much the only interventions Omar had to do, Omar was supervising, pretty much the only interventions Omar had to do were when we got off the highway. I don't remember if there were any interventions on the highway for like 2,700 miles. So, yeah. And then there are moments like construction zones or other moments where it's not that good. I've noticed, for example, that it doesn't recognize Florida school zone speed limit signs. It'll learn. It'll get better. But the driver who's supervising the car, the human supervising the car, sees that it's not recognizing the school speed zone and hits the brakes or slows it down. Easy enough to do. So, this kind of nonsense, you're going to see a lot of this media FUD about FSD Beta. FSD Beta is making the roads safer. This is a goal, and if you watched my video recently where I talked about the young Hannah Curran who was hit by a pedestrian, hit by a car. This is a girl who danced with my daughter in middle school. Hannah Curran, I think she was 15 years old at the time, was going through a crosswalk and hit by a car who didn't see her. And FSD Beta probably would have seen her before the human. Well, the human never saw her. FSD Beta would have seen her, would have braked, might very well have saved her life or even not hit her. Absolutely stunning that it's great. So, huge potential for FSD Beta to save lives, make our roads safer, and provide a lot of other benefits. And people like this don't care. They don't care enough to open their eyes and think. They have this knee-jerk reaction, whether they're getting paid off by the Saudis or whatever it is. This is borderline evil. When you have a technology that has the potential to save 40,000 American lives a year and 1 million around the world, and you're fighting against it, this is borderline evil. It may just be flat out evil. So, Green the Only had his comment about FSD, and I disagree with him, but I have no doubt that Green the Only, this is an account on Twitter, I have no doubt that Green is interesting. He has interesting thoughts about FSD, but he says, to those who don't have FSD Beta yet, imagine if you drove the way the app requires. That would be horrible. The car drives even worse. He says it's seriously totally unusable in any sort of traffic and on narrow roads. He later updated this to change it. I have seen FSD Beta operate a lot. It is seriously totally amazing almost all the time. Okay? It is seriously totally very good almost all the time in all sorts of traffic. It might actually be better in traffic than it is on empty roads sometimes. It knows where every car is all the time. It has 360-degree vision all the time. It is able to guess where things that are obscured by other cars are. All the way around the car, 360 degrees, constant attention, never gets tired, never falls asleep. Does it make stupid mistakes? Yeah. The most common issue I see right now is not a dangerous problem, but lane choices are just odd. You're driving down the road, and you're about to make a left turn, and you're 0.2 of a mile away from your left turn, and it decides to make a right lane change out from the left lane to the middle lane for no apparent reason. And I think what's happening is, and I think this was less common before, I think FSD Beta is taking over some of the navigation. One of the biggest conflicts that FSD Beta has now is its interaction with the navigation software. And I think that FSD Beta, the machine learning neural network software, is starting to take over the navigation, and that's why it's making mistakes, because it learns from its mistakes. So the next iteration will probably do better. The next iteration will probably do better. So that's an example of what's going wrong. But poor lane change decisions 0.2 of a mile away from your turn is not deadly. It's just awkward. And it's annoying when it happens a lot, and you keep telling it don't do that, and it keeps doing it. It's annoying. But practical reality is that's a small thing. I really think the biggest concern is getting nav to work better. And I think that ultimately Tesla is going to have to take over nav. I think they're using something called Open Maps, where they're using Google Maps and Open Maps. So really quick, there's a person in the chat named Boss USA. Boss USA, there's a schedule here. You can come back. You want to see the Lucid talk, come back later and watch the video and just follow the green box down until you get to Lucid, and we'll be talking about Lucid Motors. I'm going to remove you from the chat if you keep making stupid comments like that. So I appreciate that you're a subscriber to the channel, but don't interfere with the chat. It's plainly obvious we're not talking about Lucid yet. There's a schedule right here. We're going to get to it. Okay, and this is a Tesla channel primarily, so it's not surprising I'm talking about Tesla first. Okay, so just wanted to address that, I completely disagree with Green, and Green changed his tune and said, I think he said it's bad in narrow and heavy traffic on narrow roads is what he meant to say. But even then, my experience is it's good under almost any circumstance, and it has moments where it makes poor decisions. And it's just like surprising sometimes, and you have to have your hands ready to grab the wheel and stop. You can't just sit back like this and let the car drive. You have to be ready. That's what they tell you. Keep your hands on the wheel. When you turn on FSD Beta, it says keep your hands on the wheel. You have to be ready. You have to pay attention. It will also do phantom braking sometimes, or phantom slowdowns. Say a little less than phantom braking, but phantom slowdowns. For no apparent reason, sometimes it will slow down. You have to be ready to hit the accelerator pedal. These are small problems, but they're problems, and it could do better, and I think it will do better over time. So, and speaking of doing better, anything Tesla said, when can we expect single stack version? Will that be in version 11? And Elon said yes. Single stack refers to that the current generation of FSD Beta, the way the FSD works is when you're in a parking lot, there is a parking lot stack. The car drives a certain way in parking lots based on a certain set of programming. When you're on an interstate highway, there's a certain set of programming, how it drives on an interstate highway. When you're on regular roads and you have FSD Beta takes over, and it's a different software stack. It's a different set of code or neural network programming to drive that scenario. And version 11 is going to be FSD Beta in all three. It's going to be a single stack. And one of the things I noticed in the past, haven't noticed as much lately, is when you transition from one environment to another, when you're transitioning from one stack to another, that's an area where you start to see some mistakes. So the theory is when FSD Beta is handling all three areas and basically everything, then that transition moment will be better. And FSD Beta will improve by handling more situations total. So that's the theory. So okay. So that's it I think I had for FSD Beta. So let's talk about Arcimoto. Before we do that, again, I want to thank the Vasa Law Firm in Sweden, all my Patreon supporters. We're going to be doing, you can support the channel on Patreon, and the link's in the description below. We're going to be talking, I have some questions from Patreon supporters. I take those first in the Q&A. This week I'm doing Q&A at the end. Sometimes I do a Q&A in the middle, but I'm going to do a Q&A at the end. So let's talk about Arcimoto. At the Electrified Expo, I drove, I think I drove this particular Arcimoto. I'm not sure. I think I drove two different Arcimotos, actually. So we saw multiple Arcimotos, and a lot of people are excited about this. I was going to talk about Arcimoto. I'm going to say flatly, I was disappointed. I hoped for better. And I actually took notes. I took notes right after and emailed myself my notes. It is fun to drive. When you get out in the right situation, it's fun to drive. They didn't really have a great environment for driving it for fun. It was at a parking lot where you could only drive slow, and you got out to a road, you go straight, make a U-turn, go straight, make a U-turn and come back. So it wasn't really a great environment for driving it for fun. But when you're driving it, yeah, I could see that this is a fun thing to drive. With that said, I was badly disappointed by what I saw. So one of the first things I would say is basically the fundamental problem that I see with Arcimoto is what I would call the user interface. Okay, and this is basically the user interface here. You've got the right grip, you like a motorcycle, you accelerate like that. I don't remember what you do with the left grip. I don't think I did much with the left grip. And then, I don't know if you can see it here. Let me see if I can make this larger. So right above here, there's a bunch of little controls right next to the grip. So there's this thing with 3 dots and it's like a switch that you slide side to side, and one is forward, one is neutral, one is reverse. There's this red button up at the top. I don't remember what that was for. There's a little lever above the red button that I don't think you can see. It's like a finger lever that you pull here. That's the regenerative braking. And then down below here on the floor, there's a brake pedal for the hydraulic brakes. So rather than, like on a Tesla, if you hit the brakes, it does regen until you're braking hard enough that it needs to go to hydraulic brakes. You know, the brakes that are actually on the wheels versus the motor just slowing the vehicle down. And so that was kind of awkward, and the way the regen worked was kind of awkward. You know, you're pulling this little lever. Which brake are you using? I found that a little awkward. There's something else. With a Tesla, when you put your foot down on the accelerator, you go faster. When you take your foot off the accelerator, the car starts to slow down. They call it one-pedal braking. If you want to keep going, you keep your foot at a certain level. It'll go at that speed. Ideally, you're using cruise control most of the time, in my experience. With the Arcimoto, if you turn the grip and then you relax, it doesn't slow down. In other words, they don't have the regen from where you position the grip, which I found a little surprising. And the other thing is, if you look in the center here, you can see all these buttons. There's all these little chiclet buttons. And then you have this screen here that's set back away from you. And I'm kind of wondering, like, why didn't they just use an iPad approach like Tesla uses? Why have it? And there's all these little chiclet buttons, and like one of them is the parking. The only one I really used was the parking brake, but it just seemed like this was and then like the turn signals apparently on the, you know, here's the one hand, if you go to the other handlebar, I guess the turn signal's over there. I never figured out where the turn signal was. Nobody told me. It seemed like an overly complex user interface compared to when you're used to driving a Tesla. So, yes, I'm comparing it to a Tesla. It's an $18,000 vehicle that only carries 2 people, you know, in some situations, 1. It's, and so when so let me just go through. So you got the 2 brakes. That's a little difficult. It's hard to steer. When you're steering this thing, it's hard to steer. It's like if you want to make a turn, like you're making a U-turn, you got to push hard to make that turn. It definitely doesn't feel like power steering. If there's power steering in there, it doesn't feel like it. I experienced on my test drive, one of the brakes started making an unusual noise. It sounded like one of the disc brakes on the front left wheel got dislodged or was in trouble, had a problem. So there was an issue with that. It was hard to start. You had to like turn the key, and then you had to press this button. Maybe it was that. Maybe it was this red button on the top. This red button here. Maybe you had to press that red button, and you had to press down hard on the brake pedal on the floor. The brake pedal on the floor. No, harder. No, you had to press. I feel like I'm already pressing the thing through the floor, and the guy says, "No, press it a little harder." And when you get it done right, then this monitor over here turns on fully and shows you what you see here: the speed and the amount, the state of charge. And it was like, wow, that's awkward. Why is that so hard to do? And then when you stop the vehicle, you've got to put it in park, which is one of the chiclet buttons down here, and you got to put it in neutral over here. And maybe there was one other thing you got to. It's like too much to do. Don't make it so hard for me to use. And then it's awkward getting in and out of the vehicle. It's not as easy as I thought to get in and out. You have to sort of step over the center. You have to step over to get in. Not that it was that hard, but it was harder than I expected. And then, you know, I did like the seat belts. It's got these cross seat belts. There were things I did like about it. It does feel like it goes fast. And Kat, who was also there, she felt like she didn't feel safe at speed. I got up to 50 miles an hour. I felt safe. I mean, I haven't heard stories of them rolling. I think it's a pretty safe, you know, it's not as safe as being in a Tesla, but it felt like it was fun. It definitely felt like it could go fast. So I don't know if there's a tax break for the Arcimoto. It's a good question. So maybe Kat thinks they're developing they told her they're developing a power steering system, or it's already in there, and they're gonna be an over-the-air download or something. Okay. And the other thing, just to mention really quick, is the curb weight. This thing weighs 1,300 pounds. So people often, for people who know, I'm working on a single passenger EV, which people think is similar to the Arcimoto, and I constantly get people saying, "Hey, have you seen Arcimoto?" or "Hey, have you seen this other single passenger vehicle that somebody's working on. And generally speaking, what the other people are working on is not what I'm working on. I'm working on something that I think is significantly different from what they're working on, and I'm working on what I'm working on. But our chassis, at this point, the design, we haven't built a prototype yet, but we have a chassis design in the works, and, powertrain design is coming next. And right now, I think we're talking about 700 pounds with the rider. So we're probably talking about 500 to 600 pounds for our vehicle. And I can't figure out why their vehicle weighs so much. We have 4 wheels, they have 3, so it's odd that it weighs so much. So yeah, I mean, I'm puzzled about that. I haven't figured out, the details. I didn't dive in to really understand the engineering of Arcimoto, but it seems like they got a long way to go. And their vehicle costs $18,000, where we're targeting, long run, we're targeting $1,000 price for our vehicle. Cost to build, not cost to sell. Cost to build $1,000. $2,000 shouldn't cost more than $2,000 to build our vehicle. So maybe I'm not thinking correctly. I think if we go to, particularly if we go to scale production, we're producing hundreds or thousands of them, it should only cost us $2,000 a piece to build them. So why does it cost so much? Why does it weigh so much? Why is it so awkward? And that's the other thing, the user experience of, hard to steer and all these different buttons. And the idea that we're shooting for is you get in the vehicle, you've told it on your smartphone where you want to go, and it just takes you there. We basically eliminate, you don't control the vehicle at all. You just told it in a phone app that this is where you're going. It came and picked you up, you hopped in, and it goes. So that is an interesting thought. So if the question from Cully, if the user interface were simplified and then get it down to $9,000 average selling price, would you be impressed? That would be a lot better. I don't know. Yes. I mean, if the steering was easier and it wasn't so complicated to use, I don't know why it's so complicated. It seems so obvious to me that they should be using an iPad like a tablet computer to do all the functions instead of having all these chiclet buttons. Let me pull this up again. You see all these little chiclet buttons at the bottom here, the center of the bottom of this picture here. You see all the controls by this grip. There's controls by the other grip. There's this, screen that's up here. Everything's all over the place. Why is it all over the place? I don't know. We'll see if they can improve, but I think that's a challenge. So, and the other issue with Arcimoto is, what's the use case for this? Is this just replacing golf carts? Is this, this isn't like a daily commuter. I don't think this is something that you're going to drive instead of a car. And also it's wider at the wheels. I don't know if I have a good picture of that. I don't think you can see how wide it is in these pictures, but the front wheels stick out and they're wider. Like my pod car that we're working on is going to be 36 inches wide, 3 feet wide. I think these are more like 48 inches or 4 feet wide. So this is, I want to make it narrower. There's aerodynamic reasons for that. There's a bunch of reasons for that. I think having the 4 wheels makes it a better platform. So I think that's just going to be better. But we'll see. But I haven't built my prototype yet, right? I'm just talking about what I'm trying to do. So, Arcimoto's ahead of me in one thing. They actually have a working vehicle. A lot of them. Oh, I love this question. A comment from Jim Jenkins. To hit your $2,000 mark, it's going to need Hot Wheels-like design with just a few main parts, like one piece of glass for every opening except maybe the door. The best door is no door. There is no door. There's no doors. There's no windows. There's a clamshell. It's a clamshell. It opens up like this. That's it. No doors, no windows. One smooth piece of molded plastic, something like that. Maybe some parts of it be transparent so you can see through. So it's perfectly aerodynamically smooth and lightweight. And we are going for a very, very simple chassis design. Basically, it's 2 rails and everything goes off 2 rails is what it's looking like now. And here's crazy stuff. No suspension, no brakes. The best suspension is no suspension. The best brakes are no brakes. We use engine regenerative braking only. That makes user interface a lot simpler. Question is, can we get it to slow down fast enough for what we need? We don't know the answer to that yet. Turns out we need a more powerful motor, not to go faster, but to be able to stop quicker. Interesting. Learning a lot along the way. So, okay. So I think that covers what I wanted to say about Arcimoto. I'm excited that they're trying. I'm hopeful that that maybe you could consider this their sort of alpha prototype, although they're actually selling them. Their next generation vehicle. Let's hope that they achieve something much better with their next generation vehicle. Maybe Sandy Munro will help them with better manufacturing. But I think there's also this: what's your target market? Who is this for? Who wants this? And like at $18,000 price point, I was making fun of my Volkswagen Passat earlier, but I paid $18,000 for my Volkswagen Passat. It's got a higher top speed. It carries 5 people instead of 2. Carries a lot more room, a lot more cargo, and it'll go 700 miles on the highway where the Arcimoto will go maybe 100. As much as I now think my Passat's a piece of crap compared to my Tesla, the Passat is a much better bargain for $18,000 than an Arcimoto. And, if you're going to spend, if they get the price down to $12,000 and you could buy a car for $15,000, really? Is it better than a car? I think it's a limited circumstance. The use case is the problem. What's the use case? How big of a market is it? And I don't think the market is that big, where my vision is I'm making robo-taxis that have basically an unlimited market. So, all right. So, and then Mav says it's not really for sales, more for rentals. I mean, mine is for fleet use, not for sales either. But the rental market is small. So, well, okay. So Brain McFly says don't forget there's also a market for $30,000 motorcycles. Yeah, but $30,000 motorcycles will go over 100 miles an hour and have way more than 100 miles of range. They have 200 or 300 miles of range. Motorcycles can go a long way and on a small amount of gas. So, Mark Plot, the moderator, thank you for moderating, Mark, says, Arcimoto only 70 miles an hour on highway, not good. 70 miles an hour is good enough. Whether you feel safe at 70 miles an hour at that speed in that vehicle, I don't know. I think you probably would. Kat, who was driving another one, didn't think she would feel safe at even 50 miles an hour. So that's an individual choice. Once you're used to being encased in a Tesla, you feel so safe that this other scenario maybe doesn't feel as safe. All right. So let's move on to Lucid Motors. I hope Mr. Boss is now excited. We're going to talk about Lucid Motors. So just really quick, I made a video this week talking about Lucid put out a video about their Dream Drive, which is their advanced 8S, their advanced driver assistance system, which we don't even, they didn't really say what it is. Is this really just Mobileye? We don't even know what it is. It was a fluffy video with a nearly zero substance. It was really annoying. And I made a video breaking down why I think this relates to Lucid being a scam. And part of that video, towards the end, I talked about the fact that Lucid just spent $20 million of their cash pile buying stock from insiders. Now, they claim it's a tax issue. Okay. It's a little fuzzy about the tax issue because the number 2 guy in the company, name's Bach, sold like almost 200,000 shares, which was a price of about, I think he got over $4 million. How does this guy have a $4 million tax bill? I could understand Rawlinson having a $4 million tax bill. I don't know why the chief engineer has a $4 million tax bill. And he sold more than 10% of his stock. So, well, just really quick, Dennis says $1,000. I think you may be dreaming. There is a Chinese 4-passenger vehicle in the China market that is being sold for less than $1,000. So I'm talking about a 1-passenger vehicle, not a 4-passenger vehicle. I do think $1,000 is a stretch. It's a dream. That's a stretch goal, but $2,000 is definitely achievable, and $2,000 is good enough for what we're trying to do in terms of cost per mile operation. So, Lucid had this big transaction that they published they reported to the SEC where they. And, this point about the cash pile, this is a company that has said we have this amount of cash, and this amount of cash is going to last us until, I think they were saying 2023. I think they're now saying end of 2022. They're burning cash fast. The decision to burn $20 million of cash when you know you're going to run out of cash next year. What are you doing? And if you're Peter Rawlinson or you're this guy Bach and you're like insiders in the company who know more about this company than anybody, and you think this company's going to 10x, right? If you think this company that's like currently valued at, I don't know, 30, 40 billion, you think it's going to be worth 300, 400 billion in a few years? Why the hell would you sell any stock? If you believe in the company, you'd hold it as tight as you can. You could, borrow on margin on the stock that you have. You can find a way to borrow to pay your tax bill. You don't have to sell stock to do this. Why are they selling stock? This is crazy. So, And there's another detail that struck me. I was thinking about the Lucid efficiency claims, which I haven't made a video about this yet, but there's a guy named Matty Mogul, Matt Joyce, and he has this chart that he puts out, and I tweeted to him to ask him whether he finds this credible. Let me make this bigger so maybe you guys can see it better. Let me just make Matty's chart bigger first. So this is an electric, he calls it core efficiency. And the basic idea is you take, at the bottom here, you can see you take batteries in kilowatt hours, divide it by the EPA rated range over 100 miles, and divide it by vehicle weight over 1,000 pounds, and you get a number. So the Tesla Model X long range has the lowest core efficiency of 5. This is whenever he did this. It may have changed now. I don't think this includes this isn't the updated Tesla Model S long range or the updated Tesla Model X long range. This is the previous generation. The newer Model S and X way less, so that changes this equation a bit. The new Model S long range only weighs about 4,500 pounds instead of less than 4,600 pounds. That actually will change its core efficiency for the worse. But you can see that, the Porsche Taycan has a core efficiency rating of 9, and the Polestar 2 has a core efficiency rating of 7.2, and the Hyundai Ioniq 6.6. And it's only with Teslas that you get up into the low 5s. So this is the background of, what does this translate to in core efficiency for Lucid Motors if they're going to deliver the vehicle they claim they're going to deliver. So Lucid Motors claim, and I've heard different numbers. I just heard 2-Bit Da Vinci say that it has a 20. Right, Lucid Lucid has not been clear about how big their battery pack is on their vehicle. The EPA filing, the documents that Lucid filed with the EPA were a little misleading. As I read it, they have a 138.6 kilowatt hour pack. They're claiming somewhere between 112 and 118 kilowatt hours, so generously giving them the 118 kilowatt hour pack, 520 mile range, and a weight of 5,200 pounds, which is what they reported to the EPA. That would give them a core efficiency of 4.36, which is radically better than the best EVs. They are claiming an incredible core efficiency rate. And I asked Matt Joyce if he found that credible. Matt did not reply to my tweet. So I did another version of this where I took what I think the battery pack is 138 kilowatt hours. And then I came up with a core efficiency of 5.1. So you get your 520 miles of range with 5,200 pounds of weight with a 138 kilowatt hour pack by delivering core efficiency of 5.1. That is believable. It is believable that they achieved 520 miles of range with a 138 kilowatt hour pack. It is not believable that they delivered a 520 mile range with a 118 or 112 kilowatt hour pack. It's just not credible. So, and Motor Trend asked Rawlinson how big the battery pack was, and he wouldn't tell him. So Henry Lima says it's 113. Lucid has stated this many times. Henry, at 113 kilowatt hours, the core efficiency rating on Matt Joyce's chart would be off the charts. It's basically impossible for them to achieve that efficiency rating. It's not possible. It's not credible for them to claim that. Their EPA filing showed 138.6 kilowatt hour pack. At another point, it claimed 118 kilowatt hour pack. But when you do the calculation, 924 volts, 150 amp hours, you get 138.6 kilowatt hours. So, and Mark says Peter claimed 112 kilowatt hours. The Grand Touring vehicle is claimed to have 112 kilowatt hour pack. But they haven't delivered a car to a customer yet. As soon as they deliver cars to customers, somebody like Sandy Monroe is going to tear one down, and we're going to see what's really in there. And that's why I think they can't deliver a car to a customer. Because the minute they deliver a car to a customer, the lies are going to get exposed. But we'll see. Are they going to deliver cars to customers? Hasn't happened yet. Emmett Pepper's in the chat. Hi, Emmett. Thank you for joining the chat. And Will Bradbury, a quick mention for Will Bradbury. We're going to talk about Boring in a minute. Boring Company in a minute, and Will Bradbury's here. Will Bradbury is the channel Boring Revolution, highly recommended. Emmett Peppers from Good Soil Investing, highly recommend watching Emmett Peppers' channel. So thank you both for joining the chat. So, last thing on Lucid, just really quick, I mentioned this at the beginning of the video, things that make you go, If you look at, Elon replied to my tweet, so I'm honored to get an Elon reply. This is a big honor. If you are ever on Twitter, and Elon ever replies to your tweet, the first thing you have to do after you find out is mute your notifications, because your Twitter will become unusable if you don't. But really quick here, There's this IP, Lucid's valuation is about $33 billion. They haven't delivered a car. Rivian's valuation is $80 billion. They haven't delivered a car. Tesla, at the time they had their IPO, was valued at $1.7 billion, and they had delivered 1,400 cars. Okay? So what I get in response to my Lucid videos sometimes is, people said that about Tesla when Tesla was just getting started, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, when Tesla was getting started, they had already delivered cars at their IPO, and they were only valued at $1.7 billion. Lucid Motors is valued 20 times the value of Tesla when Tesla was already delivering cars. We don't know whether Rivian's really going for an $80 billion valuation. That's been the talk. How big is the market for 7,000-pound pickup trucks that can't carry a heavy payload? I don't know. I think these valuations are off the charts, and I'm very pleased to get a response from Elon. My tweet was inspired by Elon in the first place because Elon has made comments about this as well. But I kind of captured it in a meme, and thank you, Elon, for recognizing it. So, okay. So let's move on. That's Lucid Motors. I just wanted to give a little more substance. I have recent videos about Lucid Motors if you're interested. There are a lot of videos that are positive. Watch 2-Bit Da Vinci's channel. Just did a lengthy video. No, I don't think it was that long. I think it was more than 10-minute video where he was at the Lucid Motors event like 2 weeks ago and he talked about it. And Kilowatts, I think he did a video from the Lucid Motors event. There are a lot of pro Lucid channels out there. Get the other side, get their perspective, and then you can watch my videos and get different perspectives. Don't just take your view of Lucid based on what I say, but don't just take your view of Lucid based on what somebody else says. Get different perspectives on it and just ask yourself this question. Is it credible that Lucid is getting a $33 billion valuation without delivering a car? Is it credible that Lucid is going to deliver a car with 520 miles of range with only a 112 or 118 kilowatt hour pack when the vehicle weighs 5,200 pounds? It's not really credible. But, use your own judgment. If you want to believe it, you can believe it. And we'll find out in the hard way. MK10PW1000 says, can I become an early investor in your single vehicle company? The plan is I am self-funding for now. I am going to get to an alpha prototype on my own with my own money, being very careful with expenses. But I'm probably going to spend $50,000 building an alpha prototype. Maybe, hopefully 25, it might be 50,000. Get an alpha prototype, and at that moment, I'm going to see where I am to see, can I go ahead and self-fund the beta prototype myself, or do I need to raise money? If I need to raise money, I'm probably going to do a crowdfunding round and raise $5 million, because you can raise $5 million in a crowdfunding round. Because I do want the beta prototype to be really close to production quality, if not already production quality, and I think we may be able to get a beta prototype and start production with $5 million invested. Because if we get a $2,000 vehicle and you have $200,000 left over when you're done, you can build 100 vehicles for $200,000. So hopefully we have $1 million left over and we can build, 500 vehicles on $1 million and really get started. So, all right. So let's move on to the Boring Company. Just some quick news here. I do have one other. Before I get into this, I have a friend, Sue McLean, who we stayed at her house on our Inspiration 420 journey across the country. She lives like 2 miles from a Boring Company property outside of Austin, east of Austin. I remember that name. For some reason, the name of the town escapes me, but it's east of Austin. It's like 15 minutes from the Gigafactory. 15, 20 minutes from the Gigafactory. I'm sorry, Sue, I keep forgetting the name of the town. But she lives like 2 miles away. She said she went over to the property recently and she saw a lot more activity. So Boring Company is getting more active in Austin, and that's exciting. But so the big news was that Las Vegas, this is just a couple days ago, Boring Company is going for the full Vegas loop now. Right now they have a small line of 2 tunnels back and forth at the Las Vegas Convention Center. That's going to connect up to the Las Vegas Loop, which is going to run up and down the strip and reach the airport and reach some other things. And they are making progress towards getting approvals from the city of Las Vegas and I think Clark County to be able, Bastrop, thank you, Thaddeus, the Boring Company properties in Bastrop, to see to run the whole strip, reach the airport, and it's going to radically change transportation in Las Vegas. And the article in the Las Vegas Review Journal, it's not like getting one approval. There's a whole bunch of series of approvals they have to go through, but they are working on it. They are making progress. It's really exciting. I'm really, you bastard. I'm thanking Joe Tetmeyer in the chat. Check out Joe Tetmeyer's Joe Tetmeyer's in the chat. I don't know how to pronounce your name. Tegmeyer. He is a drone pilot who does drone videos of Giga Texas. Check out his channel. Really, I love his channel. So that's the big news from Vegas. Moving forward, I jokingly said they're moving faster than a snail's pace, which is a Boring Company reference to getting the boring machines to move faster than a snail. Then the other big news that came recently is Boring Company is making progress in Fort Lauderdale as well. There's a little history here. Boring Company had been talking with the mayor of Miami. There was some rumors about Boring Company doing, I think Elon had even said, I can replace your Brickell. There's a Brickell bridge that needs to be replaced. I would pronounce it Brickell, but apparently people in Miami pronounce it Brickell. The Brickell bridge needs to be replaced. There had been a long-standing proposal to do a tunnel that was like $1 billion, and Elon said, I can do that for $30 million. Like, name that tune. I can do that. I can do that tunnel for $30 million. And there's been talk back and forth, and there have been emails back and forth between. I did get a public records response, and I got some emails. I didn't follow up on it anymore. I could probably do another public records request. But there hasn't been any news out of Miami, like not a formal proposal that's being considered as far as we know. But Fort Lauderdale had a formal proposal from the Boring Company to do tunnels from downtown Fort Lauderdale to the beach along mostly along Las Olas Boulevard, which is a popular street that has restaurants and shops, and closer to the ocean it has residences. And they had to submit, the city council accepted the bid and invited competing bids and gave 45 days for competing bids. They apparently received 2 competing bids. Those 2 competing bids were not sufficiently close to what they were looking for, so they got rejected. And then the city commission or city council voted to continue negotiations with the Boring Company over what they're going to do. So it's basically right now, it's the city commission is negotiating with the Boring Company directly about what exactly the Boring Company is going to do for this Las Olas loop, this set of tunnels going from downtown Fort Lauderdale to the beach and back. And, you know, my guess is they're going to add a couple more stations. There was originally supposed to be only 1 station in the middle. I think it's clear to me they should have 2 stations on the Las Olas Strip and 1 station down near the residences. That would make more sense to me, but we'll see what's happening there. So that's moving forward, and that's exciting. So that's the Boring Company news. And I will just say, as an investor, if I could invest in the Boring Company, I think that is the off-the-charts crazy investment possibility that's out there besides Tesla. Because right now the Boring Company is basically 2 miles of tunnel, and I see the Boring Company going to 100,000 miles of tunnel or more. You know, if they do 100,000 miles of tunnel from 2, that's a 50,000x. There's a lot of potential there. Just really quickly, just see what this is. Oh. So, last, we're going to Q&A. Again, thanks to the Vasa Law Firm in Sweden and all my Patreon supporters for helping the channel grow. You can support the channel on Patreon, and the links in the description below. Also, quick mention, I have a channel called The Daily Lie that's on the Locals platform. Check out The Daily Lie. There's a link to that in the description below. Check out my book, Fair DUI. There's a link to that in the description below. T-shirts. There's a link to the t-shirt at the top of the chat. This is the Elon Time t-shirt. I got a lot of other t-shirts on elonbits.com. The stainless steel water bottle is on elonbits.com. This is popular. The Be Less Wrong t-shirt is the most popular. The Machine That Builds the Machine. I personally love this t-shirt. This is my design. Elon Time is 420, and it's moving fast. So Elon moves fast. But anyway, also my current favorite t-shirt is the insanely gigantic t-shirt. So, all right. So Q&A. First, I want to do the Patreon Q&A. So again, thanks to the Patreon supporters for your support. I had 4 questions from Patreon. Martin Hodgson. So if you have questions for the Q&A, start asking them in the chat, and I'll look at them. Boss USA, I'll take Boss USA's question first. Any positive thoughts on Lucid? Be honest, and do you own any Lucid stock? So do I have positive? I'm hopeful that Lucid proves me wrong and delivers a vehicle that can outcompete the Mercedes S-Class and the BMW 7 Series and actually deliver a useful vehicle that makes our roads better. It reduces pollution and all that. I just don't trust them. I think that they are frequently dishonest. I do not own any Lucid stock. I have not shorted Lucid. I did look at buying put options on Lucid, and I did not think the calculations made sense. So I did not buy put options on Lucid. like a 2-year put that would set a strike price, and if Lucid stock fell below that price by that point, then I would make money, right? But I didn't go there. So, all right. So Q&A, like the Patreon Q&A first. Martin asked, how would I forecast nickel battery supply for Tesla? So I'm not sure what you mean in terms of supply of nickel or supply of nickel-based batteries. My expectation is that LG Chem and Panasonic will continue growing their supply of 2170 and 1865 cells for the Model 3, some Model Ys, Model S, Model X. I think that that's going to continue to grow. It's going to grow 20%, 50%. The big growth in nickel battery supply is going to be 4680 cell production, which is going to be at Fremont at first. So that won't be that big because there's a limit to how big Fremont can go in terms of battery cell production. But it's really going to be at Giga Texas and Giga Berlin that we're going to see really large scale production of the 4680 cells. My guess is by the end of 2022, they're going to have significantly scaled production. And the run rate at the end of 2022 will be 100 gigawatt hours between those two locations and Fremont altogether. That Tesla will be producing at a pace of 100 gigawatt hours of cells a year. It won't produce 100 gigawatt hours of cells for the year 2022 with 4680, but they will be at that point on a pace to do 100. And so in 2023, they will produce more than 100 gigawatt hours of cells. And on top of that, you add the Panasonic cells and you add the LG Chem nickel-based cells. So you're talking about a pretty substantial volume of nickel-based cells, and that volume, like 100 gigawatt hours at 50 gigawatt hours per vehicle, at 50 kilowatt hours per vehicle, that's 20 vehicles per gigawatt hour times 100. No, that's 20 vehicles per megawatt hour. That's 20,000 vehicles per gigawatt hour. That's 2 million vehicles, just nickel-based vehicles, leaving out the lithium iron phosphate vehicles. So there's a huge potential for high volumes of vehicles being produced. So Alexandra, one of my favorites, Alexandra asks, when do I expect the GigaFest in Austin? We're mid-October now. I want to say it's going to happen in November. I'm hoping it happens November. Could be December. It'll be before the end of the year. It has. I mean, I think they're gonna have the GigaFest before the end of the year. They got to throw it together. They got to figure it out. Austin's a great place. So Pierre Marisol says I'm wrong. Look at satellite phones. So this I think is a reference to my point about Tesla not making their own phone to communicate with Starlink. That misunderstands that the satellite phones are using a different frequency than the frequency that is used by Starlink. If you don't understand the physics, I'm sorry, but that's how it works. So, Night Panther asks, I have my personal 2018 Tesla S100D, 2019 Model 3 Standard Range Plus. He rents out the Model 3 on Turo. Safety score went down. Went out around 24 hours. So he's talking about whether the safety score on his Tesla is affected by renters and do I have ethical concerns there. I think you've got to recognize that if you get the safety score, whether you get FSD Beta or not, you're going to get it at some point. It's going to be weeks or months, but whatever your safety score is, you're going to get it at some point because at some point it's not going to be in beta anymore. It's just a question of how long you get it. The real concern you probably should have for your safety score is if you're going to get Tesla insurance, which is going to be available most of the country by the end of 2023, your safety score is going to affect your insurance price. So you may not want to put your vehicle out on Turo if it's going to affect your safety score and it's going to affect your Tesla insurance cost. So it's going to have an impact. And you may have to decide, is the Turo revenue worth the impact on my Tesla insurance pricing? I don't see an ethical concern there. I don't quite get what the ethical concern is. So, and then Melody asked about a Tesla phone as well. So I answered that question already. I don't see Tesla doing a smartphone. The market for smartphones is already very competitive and very innovative, and I don't think Tesla adds a lot in terms of innovation to the smartphone market compared to what it adds in vehicles or what SpaceX adds in space. So I don't see it happening. I could be wrong. There's been a lot of talk about Volkswagen asking Elon for help. I don't know how much Elon can do to help Volkswagen other than license them FSD if they decide they want it, but FSD is not useful yet to a large audience, so it's not clear what they would do with it. I don't know how Elon can help Volkswagen It'd be interesting to see what they have in mind, but I haven't seen anything yet that makes sense. John Yent asked, do I think they might make 4680 at the Lathrop factory? No, I don't think so. I think they're going to make a really large volume of them in Giga Texas. I think they're going to make a really large volume of them in Giga Berlin. I think they will start making them in Shanghai or near Shanghai. I think they will possibly will make another Terra factory, battery cell factory on the East Coast, like Carolinas is a guess. But that's just a guess. Maybe in Japan. Okay, so that's all of the questions that I had from Patreon. Let's get that out of the way. John Bay says if FSD rating for 100 is anything like their insurance calculator, they got a lot of work to do. Elon has openly said that the FSD, the Tesla safety score, is in alpha or beta. It's just an initial swing at it. They'll get better over time. VW Tesla merger, I don't see that happening at all. The start of Amazon's growth, their PE ratio was in the high hundreds, thousand, correct. Why shouldn't Tesla be thought of the same? No, exactly. This is a great comment from JChemo11. So when you think about Tesla and trying to value Tesla, and you compare it to Amazon, Tesla is much earlier in the growth curve compared to Amazon. I bought Amazon in 2013 when it was basically flat to zero, zero profits or unprofitable or barely profitable. And the price earnings ratio was either, negative or insanely high or infinite or whatever you want to call it. But I saw the growth. I saw the growth coming. And, a year later, maybe the price earnings ratio was 200 or 500 or whatever it was. Tesla is nowhere, has a much clearer growth path that's much more obvious than Amazon had at the time. They're growing really, really fast. All looks really good. So I would say that Tesla's price earnings ratio should be significantly higher today than Amazon's today. That only makes sense to me. The price earnings ratio should be higher because it's growing faster and it's earlier in its growth curve. The growth curve is accelerating. So if the Rivian IPO is 80 billion, will it only be morons and day traders who buy in that insane valuation? I am waiting for Rivian's actual IPO documents. They've had like preliminary IPO documents, but they haven't indicated pricing or other details. I don't see how an $80 billion valuation makes sense for Rivian. I don't know who's buying stock at that level. I'm sure not. I'm excited about Rivian. I think they could make a really good truck, but they have problems. Like it's very expensive. It weighs 7,000 pounds. It has a very limited payload. It's not actually that big, the bed of the truck. Like, what exactly is this for? It's an off-road monster. Okay, how big is that market? There's a lot of problems there. So, MC says, I'm concerned I'll be priced out of my dual-motor Cybertruck that I pre-ordered. Will Tesla honor pre-order pricing for those who ordered prior to the change on the website? I would say no. I don't think Tesla is going to honor the pricing. I think that I ordered a dual motor as well. I think it was $50,000. I expect that the price of the single motor and dual motor will go up. Well, the single motor may never be sold, frankly. They're not planning on selling that one until later. But if they do sell the single motor, I expect the pricing on that to go up $10,000. I expect the pricing on dual motor to go up $10,000. I expect pricing on tri-motor to go up $20,000 for people who've already ordered. And the practical reality is that the market changed, the supply chain changed. There's a lot of things that changed that makes it harder for them to make money at the price point that they started with, and it's reasonable. They couldn't have anticipated that when they do it. Benjamin says, why is there no single video review of the Lucid Air by journalists, YouTuber like Rivian R1T? Lucid has not really given a Lucid Air to a journalist to take with them. So Marcus Brownlee, for example, MKBHD, was given a Mercedes EQS for like 2 days, and he could drive around without anybody watching him for 2 days so he could experience the EQS for himself and really see what it's like. As far as I know, Lucid has not given that kind of test drive to any journalist at all. They've let journalists drive it, 20 minutes or 40 minutes or something like that, but they haven't let somebody take, and then supervised. They haven't given it to somebody, say, take it and bring it back in a few days. They haven't done that yet, so we'll see. This question from Joanne. What do I think total deliveries and production will be for 2022? Optimistically, I think they could hit 2 million vehicles in 2022. More realistically, I think 1.6 million is more reasonable. So somewhere between there. It depends on how things go. If the supply chain problems get resolved, if Giga Texas and Giga Berlin scale quickly, if 4680 cell production scales quickly, if CATL scales production of lithium iron phosphate cells quicker, I think you could, if all the stars align, I think you could see 2 million vehicles in 2022, but probably more reasonable to say 1.6 million. And I've seen people say as low as 1.4 million, but I think that's crazy talk. Full body car casting, I don't see that happening. I think you see full chassis casting, essentially. I think the full frame of the vehicle at the, not the upper part of the body, but the chassis, one piece casting with space in the middle for the structural battery pack, I think makes sense. Who gets the EV credits on pre-owned Teslas? I don't know anything about that. Do I think Tesla insurance might force drivers to use FSD after beta to reduce accidents and premiums? It's not force. If you want to have lower premiums, use FSD more. Can Tesla stock go to over $1 million if they solve general intelligence and Tesla bots and sell millions of Tesla bots? I think $1 million is... I haven't thought about that. I think $1 million a share is probably out of reach. But I do think that Tesla bot, I'm planning, now that Q3 is done, Q3 earnings call is in 3 days. So I'm going to do another video after the Q3 earnings call. We get the financials and we get the call, and I have a much better sense of how that translates to 2022 and beyond. I'll be doing a video about that, and I'm kind of like saving a bunch of other videos for after Q3 is over. I'm doing a video about how to visit Starbase. I'm going to do new models, updated models, and I have to add Tesla bot to a model, and that's going to be crazy. So I think Tesla bot could be insanely valuable, like insanely valuable. I think they could sell tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of Tesla bots, and where they could operate their own, just like I'm thinking they're going to operate their own fleet of robo-taxis, they could operate their own fleet of Tesla bots. Crazy potential here. My estimate for earnings per share is $1.96 per share non-GAAP, Amit. That is, I believe the non-GAAP earnings per share is the number that Wall Street uses and everybody uses. What's true vehicle capacity of the 2 new Gigas? Great question, Marty Party. So, if Fremont is expected to increase production capacity to 900,000, which I think Elon said, and Fremont and Berlin are more efficient in use of their space, and they are much larger than Fremont, I think Texas in particular will probably reach 6 million vehicles a year. Berlin will probably reach 2 to 4 million vehicles a year. Long run. We're talking long run. We're not talking about, in the next couple of years. But by 2026, let's say, I think the buildings we know about will produce 6 million a year out of Texas and 3 or 4 million out of Berlin. So, at what price point per stock would you stop buying Tesla? I get questions like this a lot. I don't value Tesla or look at Tesla stock price based on what price point is it at now. Whatever price point you're talking about, I'm going to be looking at, well, where do I think Tesla's going in the future? So, for example, if Tesla went to $10,000 a share today, and I'm looking down the road, I'm saying, okay, I think it's going to go to $20,000 a share or $25,000 a share in 5 years. I might still hold it, but I might still sell some, because at $10,000 a share, it's starting to become pricey enough that I'm not sure the long-term value justifies that much of an investment. As long as it's priced under $1,000 a share, and I think it's going to $20,000 a share, why would I sell? Now, maybe it goes to $10,000 a share because Tesla bot gets delivered, and it's amazing. Or FSD goes live, and it's amazing. And the question about whether FSD is going to happen is gone. Or they scale production and the 2023 robotaxi, vehicle is out, and we can see it's amazing. When it reaches $10,000 a share, maybe we're at that point now where everything has gone well, and my $50,000 my $50,000 estimate of where I think it's going becomes a lot more realistic, and I still got 5x to go. So I'm still not selling. So it depends why it reaches that price and what I think the stock is really worth. I don't play the game of, okay, next year if Tesla hits this stock price, I'm going to sell, because I value Tesla based on what the company is doing at that moment, and then I look at the stock price. And honestly, I have not even thought about selling a single share of Tesla stock since I started buying it in 2016. Early 2016 is when I first started buying Tesla. I literally don't even think about selling it. It's not even an option in my head, because I don't see that the stock price is going to get anywhere close to its real value for 5 years minimum. Bob Muss says, Warren, if you ever sell some Tesla far in the future, will you do like others and pump the stock on your platform while selling into strength? I don't believe that my channel has that much impact on Tesla's share price, but I appreciate the compliment. I have 60,000 subscribers. This video will be watched by like 20,000 people. Wall Street is not watching my videos. I am not the one driving the share price. And I do not anticipate myself pumping the stock while selling. No, it doesn't make sense to me. I listen, if I wanted to play games, I'd be reaching out to Lucid Motors and Ford saying, hey, give me money to make videos about Ford Mustang Mach-E and Lucid Motors and Porsche Taycan, and I'd be getting paid to make videos about them, like some others are. There are YouTubers who are getting paid to make positive videos about the other EVs and other cars. Abe said, I did mention the Ioniq 5 at the Electrified Expo, Abe. The Ioniq 5 was there to look at, but that was not available to drive. I don't remember seeing an EV6. I remember seeing, I think it was the Volkswagen ID4. It was really hot out. It was really uncomfortable, and the person I was with was not comfortable with the heat in Miami, and we decided to leave rather than test drive more vehicles. So I do think the Ioniq 5 from Hyundai is promising. I am looking forward to seeing them make progress. So, do the EV tax credits matter to Tesla? No. I mean, if the EV tax credit was passed, and it was what has been talked about, it would be very favorable to Tesla, because Tesla could basically increase price and capture some of the gain from the EV tax credit. They don't have a demand issue. My shots were fired at more than E for Electric. my shots were fired at more than E for Electric is not the only one I'm firing shots at, but I'm not going to name names. I will name E for Electric, but because he's open about it. At least he's open about it. At least he tells you who's paying him. Ben Pena says, even if Lucid is not a fraud, is it not better than the Plaid or Porsche Taycan? They're too late. Their technology is becoming old. So, if Lucid is for real about the Lucid Air Dream Edition, then at that price point, it is pretty competitive with the Porsche Taycan and has a lot more range. You know, performance-wise, it's pretty competitive with the Taycan. It's probably not as fast, but close. And it has a lot more range and has a lot more room inside. I would take a Taycan in a heartbeat over a Lucid, because I don't believe Lucid's real. Will Tesla deliver a semi-roadster or Cybertruck before announcing any newer vehicle platforms? I don't know. I think there's a decent chance that this year they will describe the 2023 vehicle. I also think there's a decent chance they won't. But they're not going to deliver a semi-roadster or Cybertruck probably until 2023, and I don't expect them to stop making plans. But it did sound to me like they're not actually picking a location for future factories until 2023. They just have so much to do with what they have, that they got to scale that, and they got to deal with the supply chain problems. So, when will Tesla stop using the 1865 form factor in Fremont? Why would they stop? You know, Plaid Model S uses the 1865 cell, and it is the fastest production car any magazine has ever tested. 1865 is a fine, useful battery. And it performs really well in the Plaid. It performs really well in the long-range Model S. It's going to perform well in the X and the X. Why would you stop using it? You have a useful battery line production system in, I think it's in Nevada, where Panasonic's producing these batteries. Why not keep using them? It's not necessary to go to a different battery. If you have a good production line and a good production system, just keep doing what you're doing. I'm looking for other questions. What do I think of the clarification SAE issued on the FSD scoring system? Is the SAE I did not see an SAE clarification yet. So Damien, if you email me or you put a comment on the video, we're getting so many comments now, I don't see every comment. But I'm not aware of this. Probably best if you could email me, Damien. Go to the About part of my YouTube channel and click there. You can get my email address and send me an email. How ridiculous is GM thinking they'll become the future EV leader while increasing ICE sales? I think GM is ridiculous. I think that any automaker that says they're going to beat Tesla is ridiculous. Just build EVs. Stop targeting the 2018 Model 3. Start targeting the 2023 Robotaxi and make a vehicle that's competitive with that. And if you're 2 years behind that, at least you'll only be 2 years behind that. If you target to try to compete with the Model 3 long range from 2018 and you don't get there by 2023, then you're 7 years behind the next vehicle. So let's see. How am I doing on time? I gotta wrap up in a half hour. So battery production in India, solar products, or Singapore. I don't see Singapore being a good place to produce because I don't think Singapore has a lot of empty land. I could be wrong about that, but as far as I know, Singapore doesn't have a lot of room to, and it's a very expensive market for real estate and things like that. And I don't think Singapore has a large market for the products. So India would make more sense than Singapore, but I think India still has a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of other issues. Which German car manufacturer will bite the dust first? That's a tough one. I don't know that the Germans are the first to go. Yes, Daimler would be the first to go of the German manufacturers, but I'm not sure. I think that they're all under a lot of pressure, and it's sort of a question of who loses the most sales quickest. I'm not sure there. I mean, the EQS looks like a great vehicle. Volkswagen is making progress on EVs. When I saw BMW, they're not making a lot of progress on EVs, but I think they also are making good profits on the cars they have. So maybe BMW is the most vulnerable because they're not really moving on the EV front that I can see. Will all boring tunnels be electric only, or will some be ventilated? This was a question from Robert. The answer to your question is that most boring tunnels that we've heard about are designed for EVs, but there are boring tunnel projects that have been proposed that would work with gasoline-powered vehicles. The Brickell tunnel, the Brickell boring project would be for regular vehicles, and there's a proposal for like a train tunnel in Fort Lauderdale that would probably allow. I don't know whether the trains are electric or not. I think that would allow for. They're ventilated anyway. They just have to have more ventilation. Did I listen to the Agile Tesla podcast? I watched the beginning of the other. This guy did a video talking about Tesla's agile methods, and I thought it was a lot of fluff. I didn't think that video was that substantive, but I didn't watch the whole thing, so maybe I missed it. Foxconn buying Lordstown Manufacturing Center. Do I think Foxconn will be the Apple car? I don't think there's going to be an Apple car. Let me know when they fix autocorrect, and then I'll be interested in an Apple car. You can't make autocorrect work. Why are we worrying about them making a car? And their phones are good for 2 years before they go crappy. You really want a car that dies in 2 years? I mean, I use an iPhone. Don't get me wrong. I use Mac laptops. My Mac laptop is 3 years old and already starting to be shitty. And, my iPhone starting to, like, lose battery life quicker. Why aren't their products better? I don't want a car that's going to die in 3 years, so I have to buy a new car. A lot of questions about Volkswagen and Dice from Volkswagen. I don't feel like I know enough about what's going on inside Volkswagen to be able to say. The one concern I have is that, Dice, who's the CEO, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, he may have like what he wants to do, but this is a problem with every legacy car manufacturer is they have these different interests they have to serve. In Volkswagen's case, they have to serve the government, they have to serve the unions, they have to serve the dealerships, they have to serve the bureaucracy. There's all these different stakeholders that are pushing for what they want out of Volkswagen. And that makes it harder for Volkswagen to focus and do what needs to be done. And same thing for General Motors and Ford and Stellantis and BMW. And they all have their legacy, bureaucracy, stakeholder problems to keep up with. They all have a lot of debt. So, a lot of potential problems. I want to be clear, I think Tesla's agile production methods are important. I just didn't think the video was that good. Maybe you guys are talking about a different video. I think it was Joe Justice did that video. When I watched the video, the parts I saw, some things didn't make sense. I thought he got some things wrong. Oh, MK10PW1000. How are my Uber and the other companies' puts doing? I bought puts, 2-year puts on Uber and Lyft. I don't think they're doing well right now. I think if I sold them right, if I closed out the positions now, I would lose the $10,000 I invested. It's a bet that something good's going to happen by the end of 2022. Right now, I don't think it looks like a good bet, but we'll see what happens in 2022. I kind of regret that I didn't wait to make the bet more recently, and I kind of regret I didn't really want to be somebody who bets against companies. I just thought I saw a compelling deal, and maybe I jumped the gun too soon. Beniko says, Beniko, Yoroshiku Beniko. She says, if FSD Beta works in the Vegas loop, Tesla can technically run robotaxi there. Do I think it's going to happen soon? As far as I know, Tesla and Boring Company are not working on FSD Beta in the boring tunnels yet. I don't know if they're working on that or not. I don't know. The problem is you don't have enough vehicles to generate enough data to be sure to train the system. I think Boring Company is going to need to have more vehicles running in more boring loops before they can adequately train it for that environment. So, Corey Bryant says, Warren, do you think we'll see further improvements on margin percentage in Q3 results? Do I think we'll reach 30%? Yes, I think we will see improvements in margins because we're seeing growth in production out of Shanghai, which has higher margins, and we're seeing a shift from vehicles being shipped from Fremont to vehicles being shipped from Shanghai, whatever. So the vehicles are being produced closer to their customers, so that reduces transport costs as well. And those two things help increase margins. I don't know if about 30%. I think 30% might be stretching. I think we're talking about gross margin, but I think we're making progress. MC says, any spies or saboteurs in FSD development? There probably are people trying to spy on FSD development. I don't see how you can sabotage it. I think Tesla has a really good team that's really good at information security. You know, when you got somebody like Elon Musk at the top of your company and Andrej Karpathy, they're pretty savvy to what hackers try to do. I'm not too worried about that. As for spies, you know, what are you going to do? You can spy all you want. You've got to develop a neural network system, machine learning system to be able to do the training. You can't just spy and get it. They come out and tell people what they're doing. It's not like they're hiding it. Damian Weiss says, what do I think of Morning Joe on CNBC saying Tesla needed more body styles with a different look? I didn't see that. I think it's dumb. I think that Tesla is selling every vehicle they can make. People want the Model Y. Honestly, if you look, I was in traffic and there was a BMW, I want to say it was like a X4 or something like that, right behind a Model Y, and they looked almost identical in shape. Just people are buying, all the SUV, a lot of the SUVs look alike. Tesla's going to make a high volume of SUVs. What's the big deal? They all look alike anyway. I think when they go to the next generation vehicle, there's going to be multiple platform. There's going to be a platform with multiple body styles. So I think there's a lot of potential for that to change. But I honestly think that I think the Tesla vehicles are gorgeous. I think Franz von Holzhausen and the team are doing a great job designing vehicles, and I don't see where there's a problem there. Let's see. There's a question about, or not if it's a question, it's a comment. Warren, if Tesla merged with Neuralink, Boring, SpaceX, wouldn't stock price go down as the other three companies lose money? People talk about that all the time. Dave Lee talks about the idea of some sort of holding company. I don't see an advantage to that. I think Elon would be better off keeping Neuralink, Boring Company, and SpaceX private, you know, away from the stock market pressures for as long as possible. I don't see a gain there. Thank you to Christopher Hill for your support. Is the Model S or Y the halo vehicle for Tesla? The Model S Plaid is the halo vehicle for Tesla right now. The Roadster ultimately will be a halo vehicle. I think Cybertruck Trimotor will be a halo vehicle. Model X Plaid, but right now Model S Plaid is the halo vehicle. 0 to 60 in 2 seconds, standing quarter mile in 9.23 seconds. It's a rocket. It is a spectacular vehicle. Roadster eventually will surpass it. 2023 maybe. Scott K says, how do you handle the SIPC insurance thing? It only covers $500 per $500,000 per. I don't have any opinion on stock insurance or whatever. I don't have any opinion on that. I don't know enough to answer that. It's not something I think about or worry about, frankly. For all the Tesla doubters, do you think there will be a cataclysmic event that will change their minds, or will there be resistance to widespread acceptance? Cataclysmic event that will change their minds. I think that what's changing minds is as your neighbor gets a Tesla and you see your neighbor's Tesla and then your neighbor says, hey, you want to go for a drive? As more people experience Tesla, more people get one over. I don't think it's a cataclysmic event. I think it's a gradual process. So Quasi says the 4680, I had answered Quasi's question earlier about the 1865 cell production, that the 4680 is cheaper, more dense, etc. Until they're making so many 4680 cells that they don't need the 1865 cells anymore. It doesn't make sense to stop making the 1860. As long as you have a useful product you can make with that, you keep making the cells. You just keep, as long as the cells are more valuable than not making them, you keep making them. And maybe they go into battery grid storage instead of vehicles at some point. But there's no reason you would stop a productive line that is making a useful product. The prospect that they're going to be making so many 4680s that 1865 becomes irrelevant, I think is unlikely. When do I think we'll see cats on Mars? Not right away. I'm not going to be an Arcimoto shareholder. That's correct. So William Wu says he took a class with Bob Bondurant at Advanced Road Race School, and there's so much strategy that we can use to safer driving and accident avoidance. FSD should use the skills of these schools. No, FSD does not learn from humans teaching it how to drive directly, saying, drive like this. They don't write algorithms into the software to drive this way. The cars are learning how to drive themselves and optimize safety themselves, just like AlphaGo learned to win Go without a human telling it how to play Go. That's hard to wrap your head around, but the car will learn itself from the data that it sees, just like we learn about our environment from what we see. Let's see. Cybertruck did not disappear from Tesla website. Will Tesla bots unionize? I don't think so. This is not a new shirt. This is the Elon Time shirt. I made this a while ago. Please check it out. It's at the top of the chat, and it's on elonbits.com. Elon Time is one of my favorite shirts. I wear this one a lot. 420, moving fast. All right, so it seems like the questions have slowed down. I don't know if this is a result of limiting it to subscribers. Just really quick, if you want to participate in the chat, you have to be subscribed to the channel. I'm trying that as an experiment. I can see that we have fewer viewers today than we usually have on a Sunday, so maybe the limiting the chat to subscribers reduce the number of views. I'm not sure. I'm curious to hear from Mark and Carl whether they think the chat was smoother with subscribers only, whether that limited the number of difficult. I mean, it seemed like there were a lot of comments in the chat that were frustrating for the mods, so I don't know whether that was better or not. Maybe it didn't make a difference and we should go back to letting non-subscribers comment in the chat. Why does Tesla not have a slow-speed environment robotaxi service now? Because it's not good enough yet. And that's not the goal. The goal isn't to have a slow-speed robotaxi service. The goal is to have a functional robotaxi service. But FSD is not good. Even at low speeds, it's not that good. And so it's great in a lot of circumstances, but it still makes mistakes. Am I having a good day? I'm having a pretty good day. Yeah, I'm having a pretty good day. Do I have an opinions on Rocket Lab or its founder, Peter Beck? Good question, Emmett. I haven't looked deeply at the economics of Rocket Lab. I'm excited about it. I watched one of their launches. I'm hopeful that they're able to get the propulsive landing. I think they're probably the most innovative rocket company out there today, other than SpaceX. I root for them. I root for, honestly, I even root for Lucid Motors. I root for Rivian. I want them to succeed. But I do think Rocket Lab is doing interesting stuff, and I'm hoping they keep going. I hope they make progress. There's another one that's like 3D printing rockets. You know, I think there's a lot of exciting ideas. Let's keep going. I think the practical reality is that Starship, if SpaceX delivers Starship, it may render all these other competitors irrelevant. But there's a lot of governments that want to have other companies out there providing launch services. So I think there's potential for Rocket Lab to survive and thrive. I think they announced that they're doing like a second generation rocket that's going to be larger. That's good to see. Any ideas when the next Tesla model will be announced? I think 2023, honestly. I don't know that there's much sense in them announcing another vehicle in 2020. But you know, I think the big question is it's not about the model. I think we tend to focus on what vehicle am I going to drive? What vehicle are they going to sell me? And I think Elon is focused on the manufacturing, the machine that builds the machine. T-shirt at elonbits.com. I think the next, big day would be factory day. Here's how we're going to build the next generation factory, and here's what's going to come out of it. The model is almost an afterthought. It's about the production system that matters more than anything else. Seems like subscribers only reduce super chats. This is about normal, and we don't always get a lot of super chats anyway. But I think if you're a non-subscriber, you do a super. I don't know whether super chats are limited to subscribers. For when that's a good question. I'm not sure. But I don't actually get a lot of super chats on most of the live streams. I have live streams, right? And we have a smaller audience too. So let's see. Hit that subscribe. Yeah, it's free to subscribe to the channel. So I don't know why people don't subscribe. Chat was smoother, fewer knuckleheads. Yeah. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Carl. ESS liquid flow battery is cheaper than Megapack. We'll see about that. I think Megapack with lithium iron phosphate is going to be very inexpensive. I think the liquid flow battery, the ESS liquid flow battery is, I think it's only a concept now. I don't know how locked in that is. So, do I think we will see the smart air suspension in the S and X come to the cheaper models over time? No. No, I think that adds complexity to manufacturing that doesn't add value. Let's see. Which Mars window will people land on Mars from Marty Party? Great question. Can bot or human on Mars first? Didn't you ask this last time? So 2024, I don't think we're going to see any Starship launches to Mars in 2022. I think we'll see a Starship cargo launch or test launches to Mars in 2024. My prediction is that we will actually see more than one launch to Mars in 2024. They might do 3 or even 5 so that they can learn from each one and space them out so that they can apply the learning from the first one to the second one, apply the learning from the second one to the third one, apply the second learning from the, so that you can learn a lot if you did launch more than one. And then so if that's 2026, sorry, if that's 2024, then 2026, probably still not enough confidence to launch humans to Mars in 2026. I'd like to see it, but I think the confidence level for being able to stick the landing versus the risk of having humans die on the trip, I think the 2026 window you see a lot of launches to Mars, 10 or 20 launches to Mars. And then if you stick 20 landings in a row, then you're a lot more confident about sending humans in 2029. That's my thoughts. Bromy says, adding in the mega power packs to your financials, what is your best annual PE? I'm not sure what you mean by PE, and I already include mega pack in my financials. When I do my models, I already include it. Any news on OEM access to superchargers? No news yet. I don't think that the legacy automakers want their customers going to a Tesla supercharger. Why would you want to expose them to Tesla branding? I think that's a problem. I had to take a few breaks from my vices. Which Mars window will people land on Mars? I answered that. I answered that. Let's see. What's my opinion on good? Did I see that several cars, BMW, Hyundai, and Audi 8 say they have traffic jam self-driving? What's your opinion on how good traffic jam self-driving is, and doesn't Tesla already have the same ability? I don't know what traffic jam driving is for others. I have ridden FSD Beta in traffic jams, and it is perfect. It is as good as you can imagine. I'm not FSD Beta because I think on a traffic jam is usually on an interstate highway. It works great. Not a big issue at all. Will the Model X remain Tesla's front runner while they put something else forward? I don't know what you mean by front runner. I don't understand what that means. I mean, Tesla's front runner is the Model Y. The Model Y is the high volume vehicle. I think you may have asked about the Halo car, and the Halo car is the Model S Plaid. Would I consider test driving a Tesla semi-truck? Yes, hell yes. I would love to drive that. Can I get one? Can I build an RV based on it? A motor coach based on it? I would love that. My buddy Brian and I will be happy to take it out and we'll build a RV on it, on the platform. It'd be awesome. Enrique says, will Model 3 and Model Y have their price reduced once the compact car is formally announced? I think that the Model 3 and Model Y pricing will come down when the supply chain issues are resolved, if the supply chain issues are resolved. What's my take on NHTSA putting pressure on Tesla? Did I not talk about that? Hang on a second. I think I forgot to talk about that. Where's that? Wow. Oh, here it is. Let's talk about that. Thank you for asking about that. I don't know how I missed this. So I meant to talk about this in the video earlier. Tesla got a letter from the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, basically alleging that Tesla is doing a recall without notifying NHTSA of the recall because they're doing an over-the-air update of the car, which is absolute nonsense, and it would be an absolute bureaucratic nightmare if Tesla had to do a recall notice every time they did an over-the-air update on the software. And one of the things that I noticed when I looked at the letter, if you search for NHTSA FSD Beta letter, you'll probably find it on Google. They said that they wanted Tesla to, they said they were investigating an alleged defect, but they never, nowhere in the letter does it say what the alleged defect is. There's no defect. There's a safety application that they're going to make safer. It's not a defect at all. So, and they had this reference to it mitigates a defect. You can see down at the bottom, mitigates a defect that poses an unreasonable risk. There's no defect. This is an improvement. It doesn't make any sense at all. But thank you for asking about that. I thought I covered it, and I guess I didn't. Self-flying Tesla plane. I think that's down the road, and possibly never. Do I think California legislation will be influenced by Tesla moving headquarters out of California? No, I think that government doesn't care. Oh, Enrique said, will Model 3 and Model Y have their price reduced once the compact car is formally announced? I don't know if I answered that question. Yeah, I think I did. That when it's not about the compact car, it's about the supply chain. Am I enjoying semi-retirement? I don't retire well. I just keep working. I'm basically doing this YouTube thing full time, and I'm perfectly happy about it. Don't I think that Tesla already applied updated manufacturing processes? I think Tesla continues to apply updated manufacturing processes, and the next factory will have even better processes than the last one. Jeff Bezos takes out $1 billion personally for Blue Origin. What to show for it? Yeah, I think Jeff Bezos is disappointed. Will GM and Ford both survive? Which has a better chance, in my opinion? I don't know. I think they're both going to fail. I think nearly all major automakers are going to fail. They will get bailed out by their governments, and they will fail again. And it's a question of how often governments will bail them out. At what point will governments, let it go? Does any tech company have to report software updates to the government? Yeah, it's actually ridiculous. When am I heading to Starbase again? So, I think Alexandra asked earlier, when do I think that there will be a party, a Giga Texas event? I think the Giga Texas event will be in November or December. I will go to that. I will probably spend a week in Austin. I want to look at land to buy for my solar farm apartment project. And I will probably also drive down to I'm probably going to drive to Austin, which will be like a 2-day drive, a long 2-day drive. Go to Austin, go to the event, go look at land before and after, and then I'm going to go down to Starbase and take a look at Starbase again to see what the progress is. What are my thoughts on Chamath selling? And Starbase is a long drive. That's another day to go to Starbase and probably spend a night there. So what are my thoughts on Chamath selling all of his Tesla? I don't pay that much attention to Chamath to have an opinion on that. I think he has his own ideas of like how he can apply the capital for an energy startup, and God bless him. I mean, I'm thinking about doing my own startup that I'm going to spend money on. I could take that money and just invest it in Tesla stock. If I have my own startup that I think has got potential, I'm going to do that. I don't fault Chamath for taking money out of Tesla and investing it in something that he thinks could be ultimately bigger and better. What's my best guess for when I think Tesla will hold a compact event? Before 2024? Yeah, I think it'll be 2023 or maybe late 2022. Klaus, thank you for joining the channel. Very much appreciated. Klaus joined as an exclusive content member. You can join the YouTube channel. You can support the channel on Patreon, link below. You can join the channel on YouTube. I think there's a link, and maybe you can do it otherwise. And there's different levels of membership, both on Patreon and on YouTube channel. And the exclusive content members get early access to videos. Patreon supporters get early access to videos. So sometimes I publish videos, and a day or two before I make it available to the exclusive content members and above, and to the Patreon supporters. So thank you, Klaus. Or maybe it's saying that Klaus reached his 5 months as a member. I don't know. Warren, did Tesla disable your FSD beta? No comment. No, I'm not going to answer that question. The car still has FSD. I have a lot of experience now with FSD Beta, but I'm not going to say whether Tesla disabled the FSD Beta. Draw your own conclusions. How many times should the U.S. taxpayers be expected to bail out GM? If you ask me, 0. But expected, you know, I would expect it's going to happen because that's the way politics works. All right. So we're approaching 2 o'clock, and I need to 2 o'clock East Coast time, and I have something I have to do at 2 o'clock. So I am going to have to end the live stream a little earlier than I usually would. If you have comments, the live stream is a little different because I limited the chat to subscribers only. If you have comments about that, if you, let's say you're a non-subscriber and you are not happy that you weren't able to contribute in the chat, let me know in the comments below and tell me why you're not subscribing to the channel. If you're following this if you're on this live stream every week, why wouldn't you subscribe to the channel? I'd be curious to hear that. Because to comment in the chat, you have to be logged in, so why not subscribe? And then you get notified when I have a new video. Anyway, thank you all. Thank you in particular to the moderators. Thank you to my Patreon supporters. And Vasa Law Firm in Sweden. There's links to all of this in the description below. Check out my book, Fair DUI. Good book if you want to know how to handle a traffic stop. You get stopped. Check out the t-shirts and the stainless steel water bottles at elonbits.com. Check out my channel, The Daily Lie. I'll link to that in the description below, where I talk about no politics on here. I limit the politics to The Daily Lie. Really about propaganda more than about politics. But check out that channel in the description below as well.